Hi, today I have an exciting episode for you all. I'm doing an interview with Charisse Gibbs. Charisse is a mom of two, and she used her own experience going through a divorce and managing her finances and the changes in finances to come forward on the other side. And now she's helping women going through the same thing. She's also helping just people in general manage their own finances and do their own budget. And she became a budget coach based on that experience. So, hello, Charisse.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. So glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I think this audience is going to really appreciate this because I have a lot of people that are either in the midst of divorce, already have been divorced, single moms now, and they have questions about their finances and how can they manage all of this amidst some uncertainty as well. So super excited. I think everybody's going to get a lot out of this.
I hope so. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit of your story just so that we can hear kind of where you're coming from?
Sure. So I was married for 12 years in total. And about, let me see, it was 2018. My husband and I decided to separate. And at the time, my son was just under 3 years old. So I was kind of still part-time mom. I mean, not part-time mom, but I was working part-time and staying home with him most of the time. So I definitely was not prepared financially for the separation, but it became necessary at that point. So when my ex-husband moved out, I was faced with having to pay a mortgage on my own, car note, car insurance, daycare, utilities, all of that. And I said, I can't do this, not on what I'm bringing home. I can't do this by myself. So I will say that I am a Christian woman. I believe in God, and it took a lot of prayer to get me through that time. But one thing that I really held on to, my prayer partner at the time, she told me after prayer one evening, she said to me, the Lord told me to share with you that no matter what happens between you and your husband, he's going to take care of you and your children. And I really, really held fast to that. And so within a couple of months of my ex-husband moving out, I got a better job, a full-time position. And within 6 weeks of that, I was offered another position, making even more money. So I got to the point where I was able to manage my household just on my income. And he was sending money back to assist, but
Mhm.
I got to a point where I was able to manage it on my own. But it was a rough couple of years getting to that point. Um, what I really had to do was lay everything out on paper. I'm a visual person, so I have to see it in writing, all laid out. And that's really what I had to do, take a step back and look at it without the emotion, without the anger, without the disappointment, and just really look at things objectively to see, okay, where am I? What do I need to do? How much do I need to make to be able to manage this on my own? Um, so again, it took a couple of years to come out of a place where I was scared because I was.
Yeah.
Um, it took a couple of years to really dig myself out of that place. But on the other side of it, I am so much better off. I have so much more peace. Um, especially with my finances, but just overall peace. And I just wanted to use my experience to help other people, particularly women in that situation where, you think you've done everything right. You think you've, played by the rules, and then life just happens. There is a way out of it. And I'm here to help other people realize
Yeah, I love that. And you said you had a prayer partner that was helping you. And I love that too, because
it.
similarly to me, navigating divorce as a Christian woman, I
Mhm.
had to also get to the point where I realized God was going to take care of me no matter what.
Absolutely.
And there
Absolutely.
was a lot of uncertainty before I realized that, or before I
Mhm.
really grasped that, there
Mhm.
was a lot more uncertainty. And then once I finally grasped that, it was like, okay, like he's going to make a way somehow. It says in the
Right.
Bible, he makes a way in the wilderness, and he's going to
Absolutely.
do that.
And he
So,
did just that. Yes.
yes. So that's great. I mean, you've got a great story. It's of course full of ups and downs like we all have, but you're turning it around and you've had such a transformation then. So it definitely can help other women. And I'm glad that you're using it to do that. So
Absolutely.
let's then start talking about a little bit more about budgeting and
Mhm.
finance, because you are a budget coach now. So when you say budget, what really does that mean? Does that mean that somebody needs to be like saving all the receipts and they have to go back each month and like track all the receipts and do a spreadsheet and, worry about every little thing they spent? Or is it just kind of a broad idea of, hey, can I afford this or can I not afford this? So can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So honestly, a budget can range from one extreme to the other. For some people, they do have to track every single penny that they spend. For other people, they can think more broadly, and it doesn't have to be that specific. So a budget really is just a plan for your spending. So for most of us who work um, and receive a paycheck, for instance, I'm paid every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, I have written out how much my income will be, what bills I plan to pay with that check, and then what other spending I need to do in addition to paying my bills. So it's just literally a plan for your spending. And a lot of people think a budget is constricting and restrictive, and oh, I can't spend money on vacations or I can't go out to eat. No, it's you making a plan for what you want to do with your money. So if you want to eat out 3 nights a week, if you want to plan that vacation, if you want to shop at Sephora every week, put it in your plan. And if there's money for it, then there you go. So it does not have to be restrictive. It just depends on where you are in your financial journey. But it's literally just making a plan.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me at least.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then can you give some general knowledge just of budgeting and managing your finances that could give anybody in any situation a better understanding of managing their finances? So we talked a little bit about making a plan. You do it every 2 weeks. Somebody else might do it, whatever fits their
Once a month
situation.
or
But
something.
is there some general knowledge that you could give that would kind of fit anybody in any situation just to help them with their money?
Sure. I think the first step, even before deciding to start budgeting, is determining what your goals are. And goals change. So, in the beginning of my journey, my goal was be able to stay in your house. Don't lose the house. Make sure the kids have food. Make sure the
Great
lights.
goal.
So it was survival mode at that point. And so every penny that came in, I was paying bills. I was trying to stay afloat.
Mhm.
Um, your goal may be to pay off debt. Your goal may be to build your savings. So a woman um, that has gone through what we've gone through, it may be, you know what, I'm good on the bills, but I don't have a safety net. So it could be just to save money. So I think the first step is determining what your goals are. And then your budget should reflect what your goals are. So if your goal is to save, then any money outside of paying bills and keeping food in the house, any additional money you have after that will go into savings. If your goal is to, I don't know, save for your kids' college fund or take your kids on a vacation next summer, your budget will reflect where your goals are. Um, so I think that's a step that some people miss, and they may omit that step or may not even know to look at what their goals are. And I think coming up with a new year is a wonderful time to start doing that. What do you want your goals to look like for the year? And even if it's not necessarily financial, do you want to move next year? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to, I don't know, whatever the goal is, there is a way that your budget can reflect what your goals are. So taking that first step and then not being intimidated by the word budget. Some people think it's an intimidating thing to do, and it doesn't have to be. Um, it's just a matter of whether it's on paper, whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's on a post-it note, just making a plan for where you want your finances to be, where you want your money to go, and not being intimidated by that. Um, but then understanding it does take some discipline. Um, that is definitely needed because it's something that you'll have to go back to repeatedly. Um, so yeah, I would say those few things: setting your goals, not being intimidated by budget, but also having the discipline to do it.
Yeah, and I love starting with the goals because it makes it less restrictive because you're
Mhm.
working then towards something that you really want. And
Exactly.
so if you phrasing it that way to this is my goal, like you gave the example of I want to take my kids on vacation. Well, this is how I'm going to work to get towards that, which
Exactly.
frames it a lot better than, oh, I don't have any money for vacation, or oh, I'm going to have to save every penny in order to do this.
Right.
It kind of flips the mindset a little bit towards
Mhm.
this is a positive thing I'm working towards.
Right. Right. And you're more
Yeah,
likely to do it if it's something that you
right. You're right.
Mhm.
Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about somebody that's just maybe now realizing that they're moving towards a separation or moving towards a
Mhm.
divorce. And they're kind of in the spot where the finances are a little bit uncertain because they don't yet know what their income is going to be after the divorce.
Mhm.
It's a little bit of a gray area, it's a little bit of an uncertain
Right.
area. So how would you be able to best navigate that time period where it's a little bit uncertain?
Sure. Um, I would say the first step is to just breathe, take a deep breath, um, because it can be scary, and I definitely understand that. Um, as far as specifically the financial side, if if it's still that in between where maybe the two of you are still living together, maybe the two of you are still contributing to bills together, um, I would take whatever additional money you can and just start saving it. You may not know what you're saving for yet. You may not know if what you'll need it, why you will need it in the future. But I would just start saving just to build that muscle. Um, then, and again, depending on how you handled finances in your marriage, if you were not the one paying the bills every month, I would start start taking a look at what your expenses are every month, getting familiar with what needs to be paid, when it's due, and either writing that down, creating a document, um, something to track. This is what I am going to be facing once either he moves out or I move out or what have you. And just getting a clear idea, even if you don't know what your income will be. If you know what your expenses are, you'll know what you need in order to meet them. And if that means, determining what type of child support or alimony is necessary, at least you know what your expenses will be and you're not walking into it blindly. So just getting as much knowledge as you can, getting as much support around you as you can. And that's not just financially, but emotionally and mentally. You will need that support to kind of walk through this journey. Um, but I think just having a clear picture of where you stand, whether that's your income, but definitely your expenses, having a list or a calendar, something to show this is what I will be expected to pay on my own once, we move through this journey.
Yeah, that's a good tip actually to consider if you're not the one that's been paying the bills. Maybe some people didn't have any control over that, or maybe they're just not
Exactly.
good at that and they just,
Hmm.
really didn't know what was coming in,
Right.
what was going out. So
Right.
it is a good time period, I think, to actually sit down and make yourself aware of that and make
Mhm.
sure that you know what are the expenses that need to go out. So I think that's great advice, especially if somebody's in that situation where they just really
Right.
aren't aware of maybe what the bills are or where the money has
Mhm.
actually been going,
Yeah,
for
there are
however long.
a lot of situations where, oh, my husband pays all the bills and, I don't have to worry about anything. And this is what I have to spend every week or something. I would really make sure what has to be paid every single month. And again, whether you're staying in the home or you're moving out or what have you, but get a clear picture of what all the debt is that is in your name, what all of the expenses, household expenses are. How much does it cost to run your household? That is definitely a good place to start.
Yeah, and if you can do that before you're completely on your own,
Yeah,
I mean, how much better
yeah,
will you be in the long run, you know?
absolutely. Mhm.
So then moving towards that, if somebody then knows what their income's going to be, maybe the divorce is final, they are entering that season of singlehood and they now know what's coming in and what's going out. What are some tips that they could use at that point?
Consistency. So just making sure you're staying on top of things. One hard lesson I had to learn going through my divorce was I don't have a safety net. It's just me now. So nobody to fall back on. I have to make sure that I am being diligent and consistent with my finances. And for me, that meant getting out of debt. For me, that meant just taking a completely different look at how I handle things. I got to a point where I said, I want as few bills as possible every month. And so I got rid of my car lease and I paid cash for a car. So I don't have a car note. I set up my car insurance where I pay every 6 months instead of every month, just because I want as few bills as possible that I have to be responsible for every month.
Yeah.
So it's just, making a decision. How do you want to handle your finances at this time? Because you've gone from, before you had to discuss with somebody else, how do we handle this? Now it's just all on you. And so do you want to handle things the same way as you did when you were married? Or are there things that you wanted to change all along and now you have the freedom to do that? So deciding for yourself, what do I want my finances to look like? Do I want to move towards being debt free? Do I want to move towards saving more money? Do I want to go out and buy things that I wasn't able to buy before? Just deciding for yourself now as a single person, how do I want my finances to look and how am I going to handle them? And then whatever decision you make, being consistent with it, I think is the advice that I would give. It will take time. You won't get to the finish line right away, and taking that pressure off of yourself. And again, this is not just for finances. This is as you're moving through your divorce period. Giving yourself grace. There will be mistakes, I'm sure. There will be times where I'm frustrated. I don't want to look at a bill today. But just giving yourself grace, but at the same time, trying to be consistent and managing your finances.
Yeah, I love that. And you said the word freedom, which as you were talking about it, that's what stuck in my mind. I was thinking the exact same word, that you now actually have freedom to spend how you want to spend, or even just to manage the bills how you want to manage them, and you gave the example
Right.
of you decided for you, it's better for you to pay your car insurance every 6 months instead of paying it monthly, and I think a lot of times people will say, well, I got to put all these bills on a monthly, time frame or monthly schedule. And that may work for some people, but in different situations, maybe it's better for somebody to do it twice a year, which is interesting because I just did the opposite. I just switched my car insurance to monthly because I realized, I realized I think this would work better for us, doing it monthly instead of it coming twice a year and being a larger bill. So, it's just interesting that it's what works for you and as long as you're getting that bill paid, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But it's personal finance, so it's what works for you personally.
Okay, great. And then let's talk a little bit about the opinions of others. So, myself, I work with, I'm health and relationship coach. So I do a lot with setting boundaries, and figuring out what is best for you, what is best for your family. Nobody else is in your shoes, and especially when it comes to money, a lot of people have a lot of opinions of what you should do with your money. So how do you then navigate, especially if you're a single mom and maybe your budget is a little bit tighter than it used to be, or whatever the situation, how do you manage going through some of those opinions or some of the pressures that you might feel from other people wanting to kind of make your money decisions for you, if that makes sense?
So I can give advice based on what I think. I didn't really go through a period where there were opinions about what I was doing with my money. I don't believe. But even just the fact that I went through a divorce, I got to a place where I could not be concerned with what other people thought of me just overall.
Right.
Um, my with my ex-husband, our relationship and courtship and marriage was very public. So, people really they people were involved, with social media and they see everything. So, when we decided to split up, I had to tell myself that it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Um, you do what's best for you. And so I could definitely translate that to finances as well. Um, what people think is of no concern to me, unless they're coming from a place
Right.
of help. But what people think and what they say and the chatter and the gossip, I didn't let it bother me because I knew I was doing what was best for myself and my children. Um, and throughout this journey, I didn't even consider what people would think. When I said, as far as how I handled my finances, I went from driving a luxury vehicle. Um, I was I had leased an Audi and was driving that, and while we were together. And then when we split up, I said, you know what, I can't afford this anymore. It costs too much to maintain it, so I gave up that lease and I bought a Ford truck. So just making that move, people can look at you and be like, oh, well, she can't afford it now because he's gone. Oh, well, I'm doing what's best for me and for my children. So I kind of blocked that. When I was making decisions, I really wasn't concerned what people were saying, what people were thinking. I knew um, what was best for me is what mattered. So I would say to anyone else going through that, if people have opinions about things, consider the source and consider their intention. If you feel like it's coming from a place of concern, um, then kind of manage it that way. So if someone is concerned because, hey, I know that things may be a little rough for you right now. Is there anywhere I can help? You know, take that for what it is. But if someone is saying, we're going out to eat and you never want to come with us anymore, what's going on? Then I would handle that a little differently. So it just depends on the intention, I would think, and the source of where it's coming from. Would be how I determine how to deal with that. But people's opinions, particularly about finances, when they don't know the full picture, I
Right.
wouldn't I wouldn't even entertain.
Yeah, and I think you definitely hit on something crucial, that what is their intention? And I mean,
Yes,
that's with anything in life,
exactly.
especially also you can apply that to like the stigma of divorce in the church. Is
Mhm.
somebody saying something to you because they legitimately are reaching out to you,
Right,
because they see your need, or they see maybe they want to check to see, are you struggling? Are you doing okay?
right,
Whether that's
right,
financial or emotional, or maybe you need
right.
help with the kids or whatever, you
Mhm.
know, or is it just some sort of a kind of like a
A
jab
dig.
at you,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
dig, or,
Mhm, mhm.
so I think with anything, it's always very wise to
Sure.
evaluate, what do you feel their intention is and how are they coming at you. And you only want to give thought to the people that you feel are your true supporters, the people
Yep,
that truly care about your well-being, are truly being there for you because they have concern.
mhm.
And those people, sure, then have a conversation with them about it. But anybody that is just spewing their opinions or or whatever, don't
Without being
you don't need
asked.
to, right, without the yes, you don't need to
But
pay them any mind.
divorce will definitely show you who's for you and who's against you.
Yep.
Um, and that discernment, like I said, to determine what is their intention,
Right.
is definitely important.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about your kids. So
Mhm.
if somebody is a single mom now, and they're raising their kids, how do you help the kids understand that maybe the finances moving forward are going to be different? How do you help them understand that maybe we used to go out to eat this often and now we're staying home, or maybe we used to do this and now we're going to do this instead? How can you handle that as a single mom then going forward if your income has decreased?
Right. So, how you handle it or what you say would depend on the age of your children. So my children were fairly young when I went through my divorce. So I didn't explicitly tell them, the finances are different or things are going to change. Some small changes were made gradually that I don't even think they noticed. But
Mhm.
as they've gotten older, um, they know what the word budget means. And if they ask to go somewhere this week, I may say, you know what, kids, it's not in the budget this week. They'll say, okay, and they'll
Mm.
move on. Um, and they've gotten to the point now where they'll say, well, mom, is this in the budget? Can we go here? So maybe
Oh,
just
good.
having a conversation or explaining to them, um, there will be times that we can do things, fun things. Um, if I have the money to do it, sometimes we won't be able to do them and we'll put it off to another time. And then giving them an alternative. If we can't go to Chuck E. Cheese this week, maybe we'll go to the park and then save Chuck E. Cheese for a special occasion.
Mhm.
Or if, so whatever the case is. So there's a way to explain it in a way that they will understand if your children are young. If they're older, maybe teenage years, you can sit down and have a conversation with them and just say, listen, in addition to the dynamics of the family changing, the dynamics of our finances have changed as well. So things may be a little tight for a while until I get in a better position. Um, and just explain to them it doesn't change, the way I feel about you. It doesn't change how much I love you. I'm working very hard to make sure that you get everything you need, but sometimes what you want, we may have to delay. And just explaining it in a way that they understand. I think when you talk to children and are honest with them, you can't go wrong. Um, and just making sure you keep it, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't give too many details. So you don't have to
Mhm.
say, well, because your father moved out, we don't have the,
Right.
making sure you just keep it really respectful and just tell them, the big picture. Our finances have changed, so things may look a little different. But I'm working very hard to make sure you get everything that you need and just leave it at that. And children will respect that your honesty to be honest with you. So there's a way to explain it. And um, one thing I had, one piece of advice I've given, particularly around the holidays, since Christmas is coming up, um, if you can't give gifts like you used to, if you can't buy everything that they want for Christmas like you used to, making sure you prioritize experiences over gifts or over
Yeah.
material things. And that can go for any time of year. Um, but letting your children know and reminding them constantly that you still love them, that the other parent still loves them, and that you're working hard to make sure they have everything they need. I don't think you can go wrong with that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with the honesty part.
Mhm.
I have, a relationship with my kids where I always answer their questions honestly, but
Sure.
at an age appropriate level.
Right.
And so I will give them an honest answer that is appropriate for the stage of life that they're in. Now, if there's something that really they're not ready for, I might say, I don't think that's really a
Yeah.
conversation for us to have now. We'll talk
Right.
about that, when you get to that point or whatever.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
just answering anything, related to money or anything in life at all,
Right. Right.
honestly, but at an age appropriate level
Hmm.
is really key, I think. And a lot of the tips that you just shared now, any family experiences,
Absolutely.
and so it is wise to sit down with your kids at their level and
Hmm.
just explain things, especially money, because people when they grow up have so much trouble around
Yes.
money. So if
Yes.
you can get that conversation going, regardless of whether you're married, divorced, single, remarried, I
Right.
mean, it's
Right.
really going to help them in the long run, regardless.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then can you give some tips that are pretty easy to implement, either for single moms or anybody in general, but I'm kind of thinking more so of the single moms. Is there anything that is really just something that is easy to do that they could start doing even today or tomorrow?
Um, Simple financial tips. Outside of what I've given, I would just say again, to decide what you want to do and be consistent with it. Now, one thing I did do, as even before the divorce was final, but during the separation, I started immersing myself in personal finance content, books and podcasts, all kinds of things, and started following people on social media, and got a lot of great tips that way. So if it's an area that you feel you're not strong in already, I would seek out the knowledge, whether it's someone one-on-one or whether it's, like I said, podcast or a book or something. I would seek out that knowledge. And again, this could be in any part of your life. So if you are going through a divorce and you're not sure how to have those hard conversations with your children, seek out the knowledge from someone, a relationship coach or what have you.
Yeah.
So if it's an area you're not strong in, don't let that be your weakness, but let that be your area of opportunity to learn more,
Mhm.
to get more knowledge. It's a very, when they rank life events and how catastrophic they are in your life, divorce is right there at the top, right after death of a close loved one. So divorce is a very daunting time in your life. There's a lot coming at you at one time. You're feeling a lot of emotions. Um, it's a lot on you mentally, emotionally, financially, everything. So if there's an area where you feel like you need the support, go out and get it. Um, there are all kinds of um, areas where you can find that support. So seek out what you need, particularly whether it's finance, whether otherwise. Seek out the support that you need.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, sometimes we're Christian women, of course. So for some things in my life, I really want to get the expertise of another Christian because I feel like they then are coming from the same kind of basis
Right,
as
right.
me, if that makes sense. And
Mhm,
for some things, that maybe doesn't matter as much. And so for
mhm,
certain things in my life, if I need help with something, I might go to somebody, and it doesn't make a difference whether they're a
right.
believer or not.
Mhm,
I would say in the areas that we are in, so
mhm,
finances and relationships, it may be more appropriate to find somebody that can help you that's coming
right.
from a biblical worldview or a Christian
Mhm,
stance.
mhm,
Not always, of course, it depends on your individual issue, but it is something to consider. Um, because you're going to be getting some tips and advice that may or may not line up with what your belief system is. So I would just say to people, just be aware of that. Maybe um, something like finances or relationships, maybe it would be better to
mhm,
seek out somebody that is also a fellow Christian. But there again, that comes in with a little bit of the discernment that we were talking about before, for where you should go and who you should seek help from. And that would
right,
be another thing that people could pray about as well,
right, right.
is who would be the
And
best to help them.
knowing the difference of, okay, which advice do I take and which do I kind of let go by the wayside. So absolutely, you're right about
Yeah, and also on that, just because you're going to somebody that's a Christian, well,
that.
maybe you don't have the same viewpoint in
Mhm,
one area as them, and
right.
so that might be an area where I don't know if I agree with that. I was reading
Mhm,
a prayer book by a prominent Christian author, and one of the things that she said, I was just kind of like, I don't know how I agree, I don't
right.
know how I feel about that. And so that's fine. I just am like, well,
Mhm,
I don't know all the details of her situation.
right.
And so I can't just say it was right or not in her
Yeah,
situation. But
exactly.
for me, from what I know, if I was in that situation, I think I maybe would handle it differently. And so,
Mhm,
yeah, it is, just having a level of discernment around all of that. So, and then I just want to ask you in general, is there anything that you would say is a great way to save money that everyone should do? Like, for example, for me, I am constantly telling everybody that they should shop at Aldi for their groceries because I
mhm.
save so much
Yes,
money and you get good stuff. And so,
yes.
like, I feel like Aldi
I
should reach
second
out to
that.
me to
Yes.
be their spokesperson.
I love Aldi, yes.
Yeah, so that's like one thing where it's like, why why would you not go there? You know, you
Right,
save so much
right.
money. Is there any other tips that you just think everybody should do to save money?
Sure. Well, in addition to Aldi, because I'm a loyal
Yeah.
shopper there. A couple of things. So I would with every store now has an app. So a lot of times you get the app, you get additional coupons and discounts. So if there's a store that you frequent, um, see if they have an app or a rewards program or something like
Hmm.
that, and use that. You can definitely use that to save money. Um, I would also say, and people feel how they want to feel about this advice, but I use cash for most purchases. Um, and studies have shown that when you use a credit card or a debit card versus cash, you tend to spend more when you're swiping than if you're paying in cash. And I have found that to be true because with cash, you see how much you have to spend and you know to stay under that amount. Whereas with a credit or debit card, you're thinking, oh, I can cover it and just swipe, swipe, swipe.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something I changed early on after my separation. I went to an all cash system. Um, and it can be, depends. It takes a while to get used to it. I'll put it that way. Um,
Hmm.
but I have found that that helps me to save money and it helps me to track what I'm spending much better. Um, if you are looking to build your savings, I would encourage anyone to do it on an automatic basis. So either set it up through your direct deposit to go into a different account than where you spend
Hmm.
your money. I would even advise people to have it going into a different bank because if it's at the same bank, oh, I can just transfer money over when I need it. If it's
Right.
a
Yeah.
separate bank, that takes days if you want to, make those transfers. And so it helps you to be a little bit more disciplined in that regard. Um, and then, like I said, just create a plan for yourself, for your money, for your finances is probably the best advice I can give. Have a plan. Um, it can feel overwhelming when your life is changing, when the makeup of your family is changing. It can feel overwhelming to say, well, now I got to make a plan for my finances. But in the long run, you will be so happy once you've done that because it will guide kind of how you move forward. Um, so that would be my advice for saving money.
Okay. And as a budget coach, of course, you're helping people to do that. You're helping them make their
Absolutely.
plan. You're helping them set their goals, like you were talking about at the beginning, see what they really want out of life, and then how
Mhm.
do you actually make that happen? So if
Right.
somebody's interested in that, somebody's interested in working with you on their budget, managing their
Mhm.
finances, where can they get in touch with you or where could they find you online?
Sure. The best place is probably to email me. Um, my email address is, and it's all spelled out, making sense with Charisse at gmail.com. And it's sense, SENSE. Um, so I help you make sense of your finances. So that's probably the best way to reach out to me is via email. What I would do if someone is interested in my services, we start out with just a questionnaire and I ask you, what are your goals? What are your goals for yourself? Not necessarily financially, but just overall.
Mhm.
And then we kind of use that as a framework to build your plan around that. Um, if your goal is, you know what, I'm recently separated, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go from here. I can help you put steps in place to land on your feet.
Okay, sounds great. And I think a lot of people will get a ton out of that because it's so important to get your
Absolutely.
finances managed. Even if you're just starting, maybe it's a little bit overwhelming to think of the whole
Mhm.
big thing, but even if you can just start with a little piece of it and at least get
Absolutely.
the ball rolling a little bit, it's going to help you
Mhm.
so much more in the long run. So. All right, Charisse, well, it was so great having you on today. I'm super excited to share all these tips with my audience because I mean, I feel that they can apply them directly to their life starting today and
Yes.
get some really good footing under managing their own finances. So thanks so much for
Absolutely.
being on. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll see you later.
All right.